What's going on, guys? Big Red coming at you today with another NASCAR Heat 4 video, and this just ain't any video. This is the video everybody's been requesting since I've started uploading videos. We're going to do a setup guide today, and I'm going to show you and basically tell you what I think each individual thing does. Notice I said what I think, because there's going to go ahead and be a disclaimer at the beginning of this video. There's a right way to do things, there's a wrong way to do things, and then there's Red's way. What I do may not work for you, but hopefully you can pick up something off this video that'll help you, and it'll help you get into custom setups, because I know it's one of the biggest deterrents is hopping into a custom room and just getting outran a second a lap. That was me on Heat 3, and that's the reason I started putting time and effort into it. Luckily, I had a bunch of buddies that helped me along the way, so some things you see in here is things I've picked up from people like the Bear 95, also Dagger, Rowdy was a big help, and even Fast Fed. Scout Bunk, can't forget him on road courses. So thanks to all of them guys. This is the collective knowledge I've gathered over the past year, and now I'm here to share it with y'all. Hopefully y'all enjoy it. Leave a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, because this is only going to be part one, and we'll get a little more in depth with the next one. Thank you. Racing. Alright, so we're going to start with, today is going to be the shock settings, but first I'm going to lay out the actual base setup I'm running here. As you can see, it's threes all the way down the board. A really big change I do is the front weight at 51.5, and then of course the wedge at 49%. You go up to your spring settings, you're going to be 1180, 1120, 1050, and 1060. What I like doing with the base setup is anything my right front spring, a good rule of thumb when it comes to this. My right front spring, half of that is what I'm going to start off with on my right rear. I don't know why, it's just something that I found along the way that works out good for me. And then I pretty much just, left side's always 50 pounds less than my right side when it comes to the rear. On the front, most of my base setups I always start off with 1180. This is just my go-to. It helps me. I leave the air pressure and cambers completely default at the tracks on Heat 4. I'll take my front sway bar to 1435 and then my track bars to 1050. Once again, this is a base. This is not going to be your race setup at the end of it, but this is how we start off. Gear, same thing, but gear is usually one of the first things you change. And we'll get into the actual descriptions and everything about gears here shortly. But I did want to explain the base setup and why I start off this way. Alright, first up is going to be our shock settings. This is a huge question along the community. And basically what the shock settings does is it allows the overall ride. That's the easiest way to describe it. Basically, the rougher the track, the higher the shock settings, the softer it's going to ride. So if you jack them up to 10, you know you're going to float along. The issue is, and what a lot of people does, is they overcompensate for the roughness of the track. Therefore, they're scrubbing tons of speed off in the middle of the corner, and when you start scrubbing speed, you start wearing tires out. And especially on this game, you know, it's something you really want to pay attention to. Another way to break down shock settings is the bump is the initial bump. It's the initial compression of the actual shock. The lower the setting, the faster it goes. The rebound is the rebound of the shock. The lower the setting, the faster it goes. So an example would be somewhere like Vegas, turn 1 and 2. You'll see a lot of people, including myself, run a staggered bump and rebound. So your bump and rebound would be something like 3.5, 3.5. The reason being the initial shock of turn 1's bumps, and it sets your car down. That's 100% fine, because it doesn't get upset when that happens. But with threes, the initial release and the rebound of the shock, that's when your car starts kicking sideways. So what you would do is, by upping the rebound number, what you're essentially doing is you're slowing the rebound. So the initial shock and then slowing the rebound. The reason that's very important to do at a track like that is because it helps your car settle into the track. With the harder springs like I run, it's really important for you to stay as much grip to the ground as you can possibly get. So hopefully that put a better perspective on what the shocks actually do for everyone. Of course, any questions when it comes to that, leave it down below, and I will definitely follow up this video to answer everyone's question. Also, anything I have talked about today in the video will be in the description down below. There will be some graphs for y'all to look at. Also, I guess you could call them handouts or flyers. And basically everything I cover in this video will be on those also. Because you can do anything with a bump and rebounds to tighten or loosen your car up just like you can a spring, just at a smaller scale. So if we coming off the corner and your car needs to be a little bit tighter, you could actually go up on your left rear rebound. That'll transfer your weight a little longer on the left rear and keep the left rear on the ground, therefore giving you more grip off the corner. But next we'll move on to the weight settings. Alright, so now we're back with the weight settings. Really simple when it comes to this, so it won't take too long to cover this section. Left side weight's always going to be 54.2. The reason it's always going to be 54.2 is you're trying to get as much weight as you can on the left side. It helps the car rotate naturally. Nose weight. Nose weight is where you get really... That's probably the most complicated part of the weight settings, or weight distribution settings, basically. Because the more nose weight, the better it's going to help you turn in the center of the corner. But there is a part where you can get too much nose weight, and then you'll start pushing from the center off. So you got to find the happy medium. If you're running a league type setup, a longer run setup, the less nose weight, the better. You can transfer that weight to the rear of the vehicle. It really helps with tire wear, and that's something you'll definitely want to pay attention to. Next is wedge. I tell everybody there's so many different types of loose, which we'll get into here a little later, but essentially wedge for the center of your corner, the less wedge, the more rotation, the better your car is going to turn. The higher the wedge, the tighter your car will be from center till right around exit. Alright, last in our weight distribution settings is going to be rod height. Rod height is something that I usually try to keep at 4 at every single track. Reason being, the lower I can keep the car, the more speed's built up. But for the guys that are running league races, ×4 wear, things like that, you can use the rod height to your advantage. You can raise your car up. It does help at a lot of these bumpier tracks. What it does is, once you raise that rod height up, you can get a little softer springs, run your bump and rebound up a click or two higher than you normally would, and over the long run, it'll help you with tire wear. Another trick that I do is at road courses and things like that. Don't want to get off too far on the road course situation, but I'll raise my rod height on the front higher than the rear. For some reason, it's always helped me to turn better. Once again, this video is 100% my thoughts and not, it couldn't. There's a right way, there's a wrong way, and there's a Red's way. So we're doing it Red's way today. But anyway, we're fixing to go into the springs. Hopefully I covered this enough. Once again, if I didn't cover this section good enough, leave some questions, comments down below, and I'll do that in a follow-up video. Now we're to my favorite part of a setup. Also, probably the most annoying part of a setup, especially to people that's just building setups. This is going to be your springs. Imagine your spring as the center core of the entire setup you're actually doing. So our left front spring's always going to be our starting point. Whatever we start with on our left front spring is going to dictate what we do throughout the rest of it. So if I run an 1100 left front spring and I run my right front at 1050, that's when it follows to your right rear. So I usually, whatever I'm running on my left front, I drop it 50 to 60 pounds and run that on my right front. Half of my right front spring, like on this one, is 1120. Half of that is going to be my right rear, which is 560. And then about 50 pounds left in that will always be my left rear spring. I know that sounds complicated, but that's just the way I've noticed it's always worked out. So that's why I start with that. That is my base start. So once again, our left front spring, it's more of a figure piece. That's where we start out. Our right front, that's where we can start making adjustments. So our right front spring, if you run off into a corner and you feel it over rotating, from your center off especially, but it does not feel like a track bar over rotation. It's not really a snapping loose as much as it's just, it feels like it's rolling over on the front and you're getting a lot of tire wear out of it. So with a track bar loose, you're going to get a lot of rear tire wear. With a right front rolling over and you put an excessive, weight on the right front tire, you're going to feel a different type of loose. It's going to eventually just go until it starts slowly snapping, as I'm doing it in my chair trying to explain it. At that point, you can raise your right front spring up, and what that'll do is slow the rollover on the front tire, and it'll distribute the weight back to the left and to the rear of the vehicle, and that'll give you more stability on exit. Now we'll move back to our right rear. Right rear, once again, is more of a centerpiece, kind of like your left front in my opinion. I don't too much mess with it once I get it set on 560 or whatever. Basically at that point I go to my left rear, which is 50 pounds, always less than my right. With a lot of my setups such as short tracks and stuff, you'll actually notice the left rear spring can be higher than my right rear spring. It's really according to the feel. So a big question I get when it comes to the rear springs or this type of loose is the drifting loose sensation. And this directly goes back to your rear springs. Say you bail off into a corner such as the Texas setup I uploaded, a lot of people were saying they were getting the drifting loose all the way throughout the corner. One of the biggest adjustments you can do, which will help you out versus changing a track bar or a wedge, is going to be go up on your left rear spring 20 pounds. Once you go up on that left rear spring 20 pounds, it'll actually tighten the rear of the car up all the way through the corner. So it's not, corner specific to a certain part of the corner. I try to tell everyone there's a lot of different types of loose. Like when you say loose, what are you referring to? What part of the corner? Because this is one of those adjustments. So if you're entering the corner and you're drifting loose all the way throughout the corner, that is when you would come up on your left rear spring. Your left rear spring will help throw that weight back on your right side. So your left rear and right front kind of work hand in hand. But hopefully I didn't jumble up the actual spring setting section. If I did, once again, like the rest of them, please leave it in the comments below and we'll cover that on the next video. Alright guys, I know it's a quick ending, but everybody was telling me to cut these videos up into 2 different videos. But hopefully you enjoyed part 1. Part 2 is coming very shortly. This video today is brought to you by the Race Mechanic and Setup app. And what that is actually an app Bad Ping in my Discord designed for us. Me and him got together, kind of figured out what we was wanting to do. And before you know it, he's built this thing from the ground up. So huge shout out to him. It's a place you can go share custom setups along with a community, have them voted on, voted up or down. It's also a place you'll be able to build a team. And within that team, you can privately share setups back and forth, keep notes, so you can have multiple setups saved to something for your times 1, 2, 3, or 4 wear. So it's big things are coming. It's rapidly growing. The beta releases 2 days, so be sure to go to the App Store and check that out. That's going to be free across all platforms, and it's already launched actually on our website. So huge shout out to him. Big thanks to everybody for the support and allowing me to be able to do this and put my brand on something that I care about a lot. And yeah, we'll catch y'all in part 2 of the video. Thanks.